maybe not so many, but if you just wave your hands, those of you that have actually attended Mauritius, exactly, there's been a few of us, and some of them are not here right now. They were some of the nicest years of my life, and I would like to share some of my experiences. The story today is about a lady called Maya, and it's kind of similar to my story. And the pictures in the background, I have asked them to let the video go, which is actually a promotional video for this offering. But I've taken the sound away. It's in Croatian. I thought you might not appreciate listening to it in Croatian. So you'll hear me. So just a few things about the Adventist Secondary School in Mauritius in Croatia. It was established in 1917, and it was primarily established for Adventist children, because in those days, under communist Yugoslavia, you had to attend school on a Sabbath. And if you were an Adventist and you didn't want to attend school on a Sabbath, some teachers gave you really hard time. They would give you really bad grades, and some of them just wouldn't be able to finish secondary schooling and then couldn't go on to university. And so one of the main reasons why this Adventist school was established was that reason. At that time, they already had a theological seminary, which was placed in Belgrade. And then back in 1975, that seminary also moved to Mauritius. And so then it all kind of came under one roof. My family converted to Adventism from Catholicism when I was 10 years old. And as a young child, having just become an Adventist, they talked about the summer camps in Mauritius, and so I attended them. And that's when I really got to love that school. The main reason, I'll be quite honest about that, is because my classroom was going to be in a castle. So to all of my fellow pupils in Germany where I went to school, I said to them, I'm going to finish my secondary education in a castle, and they kind of all looked at me like I was coming from the moon or something. And I said, no, honestly, like my classes will be in a castle. And so that's where I spent 4 years, as I said, of the nicest years of my life. We at that time, when I was a student there, we had 250 pupils. They came from the whole of the former Yugoslav 6 countries. We worshipped together, we cooked together, we had duties over the weekend, we had the 4 free-hour labor, and so inevitably on a Sabbath you would end up at least once or twice a year being on duty in the cafeteria. And so it was just a lovely balance of going to school, learning, socializing, visiting various places around. There was a lovely mountain high up, not far from Mauritius. And we had fantastic trips up there in the middle of the winter. When we got to the hut, you almost couldn't find the hut. There was so much snow. And then we knew there were somewhere benches, and we kind of walked through the snow and bumped into the benches, so we were able to sit down and have our meal. Except it was so cold, we could barely take our gloves off because it was so freezing cold. And then the journey down that mountain was actually sitting on our bums and sliding down on that snow, because there was no other way to do it. The journey up was a much tougher task, let me tell you. And so, over the time, you will all remember that we also had the war happening in the former Yugoslavia, which obviously affected Croatia as well. And so basically between the early 1990s and 2000, Mauritius kind of stopped to function as the kind of school that I knew it used to be. Because you could not, it was the time of war, and you could not have all these children from the other former Yugoslav countries attending that school, because suddenly you were at war with each other. And so during those years, Mauritius actually became a place of refuge for displaced Adventists and elderly who basically had no homes anymore, who had to flee where they were living. And so Mauritius changed its history over time. And that was probably one of the saddest parts of it, because it was always so full of young people, and suddenly it was very quiet and obviously had a completely different focus. After the war, back in 2000, the state returned the castle to the original owners, the lovely castle that at some point in time you will probably see pictures at the back. And basically, it's a noble family from Austria-Hungary, who the castle belongs to, and they received it back in their ownership. And so the Adventist Church was not able to use that castle anymore. And that is when they built additional facilities on the side opposite to the castle. The lady talking now, she is the principal there, and the building behind her is the former boys' dormitory. What they then had to do, they had to take the dormitories and convert them into classrooms. And now they basically have a shortage of classrooms and dormitory space. Because believe it or not, back when I was there we had 250 pupils. Today they have 230 pupils, and they have so many more who want to come and they just don't have the accommodation space. So the project for this year's 13th Sabbath offering, one of the projects for which the offering will be taken, is to actually build a boys' dormitory, so that where the boys are accommodated now, those rooms can be changed into additional classrooms. The interesting thing in all of that is that the pupils, the consistency of the pupils has changed considerably. When I was there were 250 Adventist pupils. Today there's 230 pupils, and the majority of them are non-Adventists, which is very interesting because Croatia, by nature, is a Catholic country, and if you're not a Catholic, it's almost associated with your nationalism. You're not a Croat. But the school is so good and so well established and so successful that many non-Adventist parents want to send their children to the school because of the well-rounded education that the children receive. So the focus is not just on learning the subjects, but it's about being available for other people, doing good things for other people, and they're actually very active. One of the areas that this is the new building that they are project that they would like to build, the new dormitory. And one of the things that they always had, even in my time, is they were very strong in sending children to study medicine and to be nurses. And as such, they go often to the city in Varaždin, and they will do health courses, and they will talk about healthy eating. They will take, they will check people's health and give them advice what they could change. It's very interesting, but health is one of those things that so often when things go wrong, people actually don't know where to start. And here we are as an Adventist church, we've got the health message, and maybe we need to be a bit more open about bringing it to other people and sharing it with other people. And so at the moment, at this point in time, Marushas is actually the biggest single individual mission project of the Adriatic Union because of how it affects people who are non-Adventists. Of course, there were times when this was a worry for the administration and the school and the church. How will this affect the whole ethos of the school? But they stuck to their principles and they said, this is who we are, and if you come to the school, this is what will happen. We will have worship. We do not go to school on Sabbath. We worship together on the Sabbath, and they are all invited to attend. And needless to say that the story of the lady from today, Maya, she was one of those that actually grew up in the village in Marushas, because the whole village is called Marushas, not just the castle. She grew up there, and she had friends who attended the primary school who were from Marushas, from the Adventists. And so she already then realized that there was something different about them. And then when she realized that they had a secondary school just down the road from her, she decided to go to school there, and her parents were very happy to send her there. And this is where she then actually, as a Catholic, and any of you who maybe come from the same background as I do, you know that in the Catholic Church you don't really read the Bible. You go to church on a Sunday and you get a few texts read, either from the Psalms or from the New Testament, and that's about it. But you're not really encouraged to read the Bible, and of course in our church that's very different. And so she started reading the Bible and actually discovered a lot of the truths for herself that she obviously was never taught being a Catholic. And the Sabbath obviously was one of the big ones. She then stayed on to complete the school there. She got baptized, and she's actually an employee now. She's running the girls' dormitory. And so you never know what happens in our schools. And I know sometimes as a church we may be hesitant to allow people who don't think like we do to join us. But if anything, that's Jesus was probably the best example to us for that. He was always open to talk to anybody, he was always open to accept anybody. And I would hope that as a church we would always be prepared to do that and to continue to do that. So that's some of the things I'd like to share with you. There is so much more that I could talk about, and I would probably be reminiscing, which to you wouldn't mean a lot, but to me it would. So I'll leave it at that, and I would like to encourage you to really give generously for the 13th Sabbath offering, as I said, part of which will go to build the Ghost Dormitory in Church. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for taking the time to listen.
Yes, don't forget that the 13th Sabbath offering, the whole offering doesn't go to the special project. It's a percentage of the offering. So the more you give, the higher the percentage will be. And these projects do make a difference. I've seen so many lives changed because of facilities provided through 13th Sabbath offerings. In my travels, I've just been astonished at the difference it makes. And I hope that you will give generously. We will divide now for our lesson study. I myself, like the lesson, the best part of the Sabbath for me is talking about the lesson. And there are many classes that meet all over campus. There are language groups. My class meets in the Blue Room or more close. Feel free to join any class that you're excited to learn from. Have a happy Sabbath.
So I said, oh, I'm sorry. So he got his computer out, his smartphone, and he spent 5 minutes fiddling around here. And then he got out a second smartphone and did the same. And he said, yeah, it's £50. You have to pay. So I said, well, why didn't they tell me when I came through the barriers at York, you see, that I wasn't allowed to get on the train? Oh, he said, it's just open now, you can get on the train and you don't have to bother. So I kept praying and praying, 5 minutes while he was spinning around. And then he said, oh, forget it.
Did you see you
went on?
Well, that's good.
So I was, everybody heard what was happening round about, so I was openly rewarded.
Yes. Protected, so I flew past all this. So, yes.
And a sense of peace as well.
And sense of peace, yes. That.
Not from your family.
I mean, I know how to live without God, and live with God, I can't do without now. It's a real confirmation that peace is there, and it's a gift that people take for granted. I'm not saying you're not going to be stressed or but having that gift that God has died for you, it's not something to belittle or say,
The Euro feels that it can achieve peace on a human basis, doesn't it? That's quite ridiculous, isn't it?